Hi guys, let us understand the configuration part of the Hibernate. As we know that Hibernate is an ORM tool. Okay, so we'll see what is the configuration in the Hibernate. So you can see this content here. Hibernate configuration introductions through JDBC properties. So we can do a configuration in Hibernate by different ways. So we'll see what are the different ways we are having for that, and then we'll see what are the SQL dialect we are having, how we can do through the XML, how we can do through the programming, or I can say programmatic configurations. That is the declarative configuration, right? So what is the Hibernate database properties? What are the other properties and purpose of that? Okay, how we can have a cache properties and purpose and transaction properties. There are some miscellaneous, so we'll see some of the details here. Okay, so Hibernate configuration. It is designed to operate in many different environments, and as such there is a broad range of configuration parameters. So there is a huge amount of configurations we are having. We can do a lot of configuration for different level. Fortunately, most have sensible default values, and Hibernate is distributed with an example hibernate.properties file in etc that display the various options, right? uh, Simply we can put the example file in your class path and customize it to suit your needs, right? So you can see this once. If you want to do configuration, you need several things, like you need a driver class. Let us say we want to connect with the uh, uh, MySQL, so you need a driver class of MySQL like com.mysql.jdbc.driver, right? If you are trying to connect with MySQL server, you need URL. So there's a hibernate.connection.url. This is a property, and we can set some value for that. What value? Like JDBC colon MySQL colon slash slash localhost 3306. That URL, right, for the connectivity of database. Hibernate connection username. What is the username of the Hibernate? Means I mean database. What is the password of the database? What is the pool size you want to set? So here, like maximum number of pooled connections that we can assign here. So Hibernate's own connections pooling algorithm is, however, quite rudimentary. It is intended to help you get started and is not intended for use in production system or even for performance testing, right? We can use third-party pool that having best performance and stability, that is the C3 P0, right? So now we can say there's a Hibernate dot connection dot pool size property where we can set the pool size, and now we can use this C3P0 here. So what is this C3P0? It is an open source JDBC connections pool distributed along with the Hibernate in the library directory of Hibernate. So Hibernate will use its org hibernate.connection.c3p0 connection provider for connection pooling if you set Hibernate c3p0 in a property. Okay, so that third party we can use here a connection pooling algorithm. Now you can see this full Hibernate properties file. What is here? We have we are trying to explain that driver. Let us say I want to connect with the Postgres SQL. Okay, so we are having a driver org.postgres.driver. What is the URL? So JDBC colon Postgres, right? Username, password, and now this is what minimum size and maximum size. So we are setting the pool size minimum or maximum. What is the timeout and maximum statements? Okay, 50. What is a dialect? That is the Hibernate.dialect. It is a Postgres SQL dialect. If you are using MySQL dialect or Oracle dialect, so there are different number of dialects we are having for different RDBMS. Okay, So for use inside an application server, you should almost always configure Hibernate to obtain connection from application server. Or there's a Java x.sql.datasource register in JDBC. So you need to do that. Okay. You can see this dialect here. Let us say you want to work with DB2. Okay, there's a DB2 dialect. Okay, you want to work with DB2 application server. There's another dialect, right? For MySQL, there's a MySQL dialect. For Postgres, just now we have seen Postgres dialect, right? So there's a number of dialect we are having for Oracle dialect, 9i, 10g dialect, right? For Sybase. So it is more than 20 uh, database supported, right? So there's a for all this database we are having corresponding dialect. So that dialect we can use. I mean, if you're using here, let us say you are using Informix, so you need Informic dialect, right? So this number of dialect has been created. So dialect is nothing but it's telling on asking what kind of RDMS you are going to use, right? So here we are having the dialect concept. Now Hibernate configuration as an XML file. If we are configuring this Hibernate in XML file, so we create a file that is Hibernate cfg.xml. We can give any name, but in that case we have to pass that name in the configure. If this is the name, by default it will take. And this cfg xml file contains list of configuration like drivers, data source, username, password, and all these things. Okay. So whole configuration be mentioned in the Hibernate cfg.xml file. See the property and tags for the Hibernate cfg.xml file. Okay. So what we are having here that there's the one Hibernate configuration root tag. So in that we are saying SessionFactory. There is a one another tag. Inside that we are saying property. What is the username? Root. What is URL? This is my MySQL URL, right? That is a database DB1. And what is the dialect? Because I'm using MySQL, so what dialect I will use? MySQL dialect, right? Then what is the profile? Let us say I just create one profile and I'm giving the profile name here. So if I'm using some ID there, they ask for the driver. So that way I am passing the driver here. And now password is what? I have admin. What is the driver class? So this is my driver com.mysql.jdbc.driver. There are some another property we are having like hbm2ddl.auto. So here we are saying update. We can also write here create, validate, okay, and create drop. So once we are saying update means it will always keep updating the records, keep always appending the records. But once we say create, it will always recreate your table and insert the record. Okay. Create and drop, it will just create. Once session close, it will drop it. Okay. So these are the several configuration we are having, which we are doing in the configuration. Okay. Obtaining a session factory, how we can obtain the session factory from the previous configuration. Let us say I just say here there's one configuration, so I will say here configuration cfg, okay, equal to new configuration, right? New configuration. Inside that I'll say dot and then say here configure. Okay. If the name is Hibernate cfg file, no need to pass anything here. In case of some other name, let us say abc.xml, so you need to pass it here the configuration file name. Once the cfg object has been obtained, from this object we can say build session factory, and I am ready with the session factory. Okay. So when all mapping have been passed by the org Hibernate CFG configuration, right? This is in a CFG package. The application must obtain a factory for org Hibernate session instance. So this is a statement we do. And this again in a org Hibernate, this is a session factory which we are getting or obtaining from the configuration, right? With the help of the session factory, we obtain the session. Look it here. So once we get the session factory, we can say here session factory. Suppose this is my SF session factory dot open session, and that session factory will give me the session instance. With the help of the session, we'll keep uh, doing like session dot save, session dot update, session dot create query, right? Session dot delete. So we can insert the record, delete the record. So this guy will finally help me to obtain the transaction and do the transactions. Okay. Hibernate database properties. So you can create some Hibernate property file where you can mention all this. If you're looking from JNDI, let us I will pass the JNDI name, I'll get the data source, right? So you can mention in the Hibernate.properties file everything. You can customize that. So it is saying what is the data source. This is my JNDI name and factory class. So this is my JTA transaction factory class. What is the lookup class? So I have a JBoss transaction manager lookup class, right? What is dialect? So I have a dialect Postgres dialect. So we are just configuring the properties here, right? So JDBC connection obtained from the GNDI data source will automatically participate in the container managed transaction of the application server. So if we are using application server, there we can add these features and we can get it. So data source property, it is a data source, that's a data source JNDI name, JNDI URL, so URL provider, I mean URL of your database, class, JNDI class, class of the JNDI, initial context factor you can pass, and username password. There are several properties we are having in the Hibernate. So properties like, I'll just explain you Hibernate dialect, that we pass the dialect, and then Hibernate so.sql. If you're using this property, then every time and you say so.sql equal to true, what it means, you will get the query which has been fired on the console. So what query has been created for this action, okay? Because that query is very much optimized query. So similarly, there are several properties we are having, okay? So these are the things which were keep commonly used here. Now, okay. So if you're looking for some comments, just say use SQL comment true. So it will come with comment also. Okay. So there are some other, like we are having some other properties, scrollable result sets. So whether you want result set to scroll or not, it all we can set. So you have to just explore more on this part. So if you want to maintain the cache kind of things, cache memory level, different level of cache memory, so you can use the Hibernate cache provider class. So the class name of custom cache provider, you have to pass it there. Similarly, we are having use second level cache or query cache factory. So we can assign some of the true or false value with that, and we'll getting the second level cache memory. So if we don't want to second level cache, we'll say use second level cache equal to false. So it will be the, okay. By default it is enabled. Just now I explained that when you are using with some of the application server, you can use the transaction factory class. You can mention the factory class and user transactions and lookup classes. Okay, here there are some other miscellaneous properties, like we are having Hibernate current session context class. Okay, this we have seen like HBM2DDL.auto. Okay, if we are setting this property, so the value could be the validate, update, and create drop, right? So automatically validates or exports schema DDL to the database when the session factor is created. With create drop, the database schema will drop when the session factor is closed. Okay, and if you say create, it will always create new tables and all. So there are some other, and we can use for that purpose.